I feel like I
You
want
like
to
that,
dance.
Corey?
Oh, that's so good, man.
Uh,
What was that?
Preturisi Planinata. Preturisi Planinata. It's a cover of a very very cool Bulgarian song. So I hope you enjoyed that, Corey. It was actually by your request, so hopefully it
Thank
did.
you. Thank you.
How's your day, man? How's your day?
My day's good. My day's been really busy. Still at the office, but always time to talk to you, Sawyer.
Yeah, even though last time I think we spoke was 2017.
I know. I know.
Wow.
Time flies.
Crazy.
Time flies. It's crazy. It's crazy. I was thinking about it as well, and I wouldn't have put it at 2017, but man, a lot's happened since then.
Definitely. I'm super curious to explore with you what actually been going on with you professionally, personally, and obviously with the personal challenges that you put yourself. But just to, for those of you who are tuning in right now, I'm here with Cory Moore, a good friend of mine. Um, I would say an exceptional performer, a person who's very interested in professional development, but also in personal growth. And we've been having a lot of really interesting and deep conversations during the time I was living in Aarhus, Denmark, an American guy based there. But I will leave actually Cory to you to give us a little bit more about the story. Who's Cory Morris? And, what's your background? What brought you to where you are today?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me on. So hello everyone. My name is Cory Morris. Where do I start? So I'll give you a little bit of professional info. I'm the chief marketing officer for Unity Studios. We do a lot of stuff within the extended reality field, which is everything within virtual, augmented, and mixed reality. We can dig into that a little bit later. As you mentioned, I'm an American living in Denmark, and I'm about to. What do we have today? We have the 25th. On the 6th of March, I will be celebrating my 20-year anniversary living in Denmark. It's pretty crazy, and I'm almost to that point now where I'm reaching the halfway point where I'll go over to my life will be more spent outside of the United States than in the United States. So I'm born and raised in a small town in Mississippi called Soso, S-O-S-O. It gets its name from the so-so mentality. When you ask people, it's like, how's it going? So-so, so-so. So can't commit to either side, right? It's funny. Um, so I joined the U.S. Navy when I was 17. Left for boot camp 3 days out of high school, and spent 5 years in the U.S. Navy working within meteorology and oceanography. My last tour of duty was in Crete, amazing island, and a dream job if you're working in meteorology because like most of the time you just look outside and it's blue sky, so it made my job incredibly easy. And I happened to meet my future wife, Anna, who's Danish, and then she lured me back to Denmark. And as I joke with her, she's held me captive here for the last 20 years. Um, I've done a lot of different things throughout my life. I often tell my kids, we'll be sitting at dinner and I'll tell them all the things that I've done, and they're like, "Dad, that's bullshit. You're lying. You haven't done that." I'm like, "I swear to God, I have done that." And I think it's really because I started at a really young age, and I've experienced so much in my life. And where I am now, uh, at the age of 43, looking at what I do professionally, what I've accomplished in terms of my family, and also just what I've done and some of the goals that I've set for myself. As I would have never imagined that just looking back 20 years ago, coming from a small town of 100, 200 people. I don't know what Google says right now, how many people live in Soso, Mississippi, but if there's not that many, to where I am now. So I don't know if that's kind of what you're looking for, but that's the abridged version of who I am.
I'm now curious to ask, of course, as probably most of the audience, what are some of those crazy, crazy things that you've done? That maybe can you share some stories, some examples of these things you've done during your lifetime?
Like jobs wise? Oh yeah. So my dad is works in. He's a welder. He's a fabricator. So I worked with him many years, refabricating old fire trucks. So there's a huge industry in the United States where you have volunteer fire departments. And I think it's when you get out into the rural parts of the United States. Obviously, the city fire department can't go out to the countryside and put out fires, so you have like these volunteer fire departments. I think it's every boy's dream to become a firefighter in some way. So you get all these volunteers who I don't even know if they have to go through any training, but they end up becoming firefighters. But it's up to each volunteer fire department to source their own fire trucks. So what I'd help my dad do, and my dad did a lot of things. This is one thing I remember is that we would get these old fire trucks. Maybe they'd been down in Florida. There's a lot of salt damage because all of the salt and the salt water. So we would really just build them from the ground up. Everything from the water tanks, and when you're transporting that amount of water, you're also transporting that amount of weight. So you have to design those a certain way. And so that's something I did. I did. It's a really dirty job. Did that for many years. It was forced labor. It was modern slavery, but that's how it is being a boy in Mississippi. You got to earn your keep, as my dad would say. He's not listening to this. He doesn't know anything about the internet, so I'm not worried about that. Yeah, and then kind of like I joined the military at a young age. When I was in the military, I worked obviously meteorology and oceanography, but I also had a little stint as it's called auxiliary security force, which is basically like a lightweight military policeman. So I did all the weapon training and got the pepper spray in my face and tried to play, sheriff. Although I hated the idea of carrying a gun with me all the time. I'd probably never be able to use it. Got here to Denmark, and kind of had to start from scratch. You lose your sense of identity when you come to a new place, right? Not only do you have to learn how to speak the language, you're familiar with that story, and I mean Danish is so hard to learn. So I had to eat crow, as they say, and kind of start from scratch. So I was just willing to take any type of job just to be able to get out and earn some money was a little milestone for me. So I took jobs as a lumberjack. So I spent a few seasons with me and my thermos and my chainsaw cutting Christmas trees. Did that for a while. That was a humbling experience, super hard work, but looking back on it now, I mean, that time that I had just with the nature in Denmark was great. Also worked in Maersk, did a little bit of logistics stuff there. I'll fast forward a little bit. I spent 11 years working for a business school where I helped co-found and lead what today is actually I would say the largest alumni association in all of Northern Europe. So that was really cool. And then ended up getting headhunted by some of the alumni from the business school to join a startup called Guest.com. Did that back in 2017, which is I think when you and I last saw each other. And I worked with them as their chief marketing officer for a year and a half, and then we were acquired by Airbnb. And I've spent the last 2 years traveling a lot between Aarhus, San Francisco, New York, and all over the world with Airbnb. That was amazing, great experience, and decided to try something else. And now I'm working with Unity Studios, also as chief marketing officer, which is a completely different area because I knew absolutely nothing about extended reality, virtual reality, but I did know one thing, and then that was going to be the future of work. And all of this is, of course, accelerated greatly because of the situation that we're living in right now, and working remotely is becoming more prominent. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys are following this, but Spotify just recently announced that they're going to let all of their employees basically decide where they want to work, and they can even choose, within means which country they want to work from. So, and that, yeah. So I've tried a little bit of everything. Also worked in a catfish house, which was amazing. Working in the back kitchen, washing dishes, getting your hands dirty, greasy, but all those things. I mean, they just build a character.
I love it, man. I've been working as well as a dishwasher, warehouses. I actually went to the US 10 years ago, this kind of a work and travel programs. And I've probably had several jobs from making burgers to being a bellman, being like a shuttle driver, like all those kind of things. And looking back, it really is about building character, because every single experience you have is teaching you something. Like you're a bellman, the boy for everything, right? But at the end of the day, you learn how to treat customers and provide like excellent customer care. You're washing dishes, you learn to be humble, and all the other things. So I think all these kind of things are your sort of like a life school in many ways.
Yeah, if anything, it teaches you the fine art of human relations, right? Which is, probably one of the secrets of having a successful life. But for me, I'm also just curious about how stuff works. I'm always interested. I always want to like pull back the curtain and say, what's really going on behind there? How are you able to do this? And if it's not everything from coming into a kitchen environment at a catfish house in Mississippi to coming here where I am now, and we're able to create some really bleeding edge technology, and sitting with some of the designers just outside the office here, and seeing how they create what they create. You got to have that natural curiosity for things, and that both that's not just in your professional life, that also has to be in your your private life as well.
Yeah, which actually leads me to I really want to dig into your journey with this kind of a personal challenges that you set yourself with running. And I haven't really been actually talking to you in the last 3 4 years since you started. So I'm really curious to kind of hear, first of all, maybe you can give a brief information for the audience what actually happened. And my first question would be, what was your motivation? Why did you decide to set up those running challenges? So maybe give a brief overview first, and just share with us why were you so excited to do this?
Yeah, so I can tee this up by talking about, so back in around 2014, 15, we were in the process of building our new home, and I was also doing my executive education at the same time, plus working full time. So I had a lot going on, and every waking moment, and I had two small children as well back then, and married. Um, and I had a lot going on, and suddenly our house was delayed a little bit, so we had to go find a place to live temporarily, and had all of our stuff packed away, and on my Saturdays were spent at the office, working on my executive education, and every second was almost kind of like planned throughout the day. And then whenever I needed to get some steam off, then I would go for a run. And before that, I've always been active in my life. I've always been doing some sports. I would definitely wouldn't say that I'm an athlete, amateur at best. But so it's not as though I just started from zero running. So I'd always been doing that. And I'd even competed in quite a few half marathons. Compete is actually the wrong word there. I had participated in a few half marathons, which was great. So and a lot of people, you get to that half marathon point, you're like, okay, what's next? So while I was doing all this, with doing my executive education, building a house, being a father, and being a husband, and trying to find a place to live and not finish, which always seems to happen when you're building a new house, I started running, and I was like, great, well, let's, my next goal is going to be, I'll try to run a marathon. And really what happened is, once I ran that first marathon, and once got into the house, um, once I finished my education, I suddenly had so much time available. And I'd reached a point in my life where I was like, okay, great. I've just experienced that I can do much more than I thought that I could. And B, I don't want to go and start filling all this extra time that I have with nonsense. I don't want to park my butt in front of a TV. I want to make use of it. And I think that's where it really started to take on a life of its own, because I did my first marathon, and I was like, okay, that actually went pretty well. And then I was like, well, let's compete in the next one. And that one went really well. I got so close to breaking the 3 hour threshold, which anyone who's ever run a marathon will tell you that's really, really hard to do. I still haven't done it. Still one of my goals. And the older I get, I know it's going to be more difficult. But like most things in life, it's like once you accomplish something, you're all often looking for the next thing. And fast forward, that was back in 2015 is when I ran my first marathon. and we can get into the nitty gritty of what I've done between now and then. But just to give you an idea of where I am now, like last September, I ran my first 100K marathon. And what's really interesting, and when I tell most people this, is that once I started competing in like, official marathons and stuff, so I've done those quite a bit around Europe. I started, coming up with my own challenges, in part because, I've been there, I've done that, and these big organized marathons with 50,000 people, they were great, but I just want to do something a little bit different. So I start setting like these yearly challenges. And the first one was like, okay, great. I just ran the Berlin Marathon. I'm in really good shape. Most people take like 6 months off before they start training for their next one. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you want to do that? I'm in the shape of my life. So I was like, all right, well, maybe I can, I ran that one in, I think it was in October. And then I was like, okay, let's run one in January and see how that feels. And I kind of did it on a whim because I was out on a long run. And just interrupt me if you want to ask a question, just so you know, Stoyan. So I was on a long run, and I was like, I had really, really good legs. Runners talk about, get good legs that day. And my nutrition was good. I was hydrated. I was like, let's just push this as far as we can go. And I ended up running a marathon, which is just over 42 kilometers. I was like, okay, cool. I was like, I ran one in January. I was like, maybe I could do this every month. And maybe I could do like a 12 and 12 challenge. And my wife looked at me like I was absolutely crazy, but she could understand the logic. She was like, yeah, why would you stop, right? And I was like, look, my training, I don't have to intensify my training. I'm going to do this anyway. So it's like, if I set a goal, then it's just much easier for me. So anyway, I ended up doing 12 and 12. That was amazing. So obviously, I'm not going to continue that.
I'll stop you here before we move with the journey. 12 and 12. Man, you've been, as I remember at that time, you've been the chief marketing officer of a startup. And then you have wife, you have kids, you have other personal things. How do you actually prepare and keep this shape going? And obviously some months would be more busy than others. So could you maybe talk a little bit about that? A lot of people have goals and dreams, and then life happens, right?
Yeah, I think everybody's busy. Everybody, claims to be busy, but I think it's really just about how you prioritize your time. And I tell people this, and often to the annoyance of many people, is that everybody has 24 hours in a day, right? It's all about how you organize and prioritize every second, every minute. I think it comes down to knowing your body really well, obviously from a physical standpoint. Also, I think it really comes down to understanding how training works. Also think that you have to start looking at your nutrition, because obviously the food that you put in your body, you're fueling your vehicle if you look at your body as a vehicle. And then you have to make some really tough life choices, Am I going to go out and drink with my friends, or am I going to get ready for that long run tomorrow? To me, I wouldn't, I guess I am a pretty goal-oriented person, all things considered, but it's not as though I don't go around and say I'm a very goal-oriented person. I think for me, it was just about setting a goal and just having the tenacity. My wife would maybe call it the stubbornness to really pursue that goal and to go all in. I think I've realized as I've grown older that if you're going to do anything, do it 100%. And I always tell my kids, I was like, if it was easy, everybody would do it, right? I started by doing like a lot of people do, and share it on social media at the beginning of the year. This is going to be my goal this year, and then providing updates. But since then, I don't even do that. Most of the goals that I do right now, I just share between my closest friends and family, and I don't even put them out on Facebook. I'm kind of beyond that now. But I've they're my own goals, right? And I may participate in an official marathon, maybe run together with a friend, maybe just to be his pace setter or her pace setter. But I don't know, man. It's like most of these things, they just kind of take on a life of their own. And I'm always like, hey, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? So I did 12 and 12, and then I did 52 and 52. So I did 52 half marathons in 52 weeks. That was really challenging because when I did 12 and 12, I was still at the university, heading up the alumni department. But when I did the 52 and 52, that was when I joined the startup, and that was hard because I was traveling all around the world. So, and I'd have to get in my training, and I had to do a half marathon every week, no matter where I was. So, traveling to Australia, opening up a market there, I had to go and find a path, and that requires research. It requires planning, and I think it just requires an enormous amount of dedication. And those things kind of bleed into your personal life and your professional life. And I have a hard time. I have a hard time untangling this whole work-life balance because at the end of the day, it's just life, man.
It's all life, man. Like what, like work life balance. It's like no, there is professional and personal life, obviously, but again, it's you're in charge. You're one has to set the rules and so on. And
Yeah,
and I think this pandemic is also kind of revealing a lot about this, because now you have to stay home. Many people, like
yeah,
some
yeah.
people can go to the office, but many people have to stay home, and it's very difficult to separate when should I stop working, right?
It's hard. It's
Um,
so hard.
so, but like what I'm interested actually is something you haven't mentioned is okay. You started these challenges like 12 and 12, 52 and 52. How did you prepare? Like, did you have to, to run during the week a number of times, like to keep in shape, and like, and was that a challenge? Like, what did you have to let go of to be able to be on track with your shape?
So I don't watch a lot of TV, which was, that there's time I can use on training there. Obviously, had to start looking at my body a little bit. I switched my diet, started reading Tim Ferriss, so got into the whole 4 hour body. But I've always had like the experimental mindset, and I don't mind testing things on my body or trying new things. So over the last few years, I've become pretty much a pescatarian. So I'll eat a little seafood every now and then, but I basically eat a whole food plant based diet. That all started as an experiment just to see how my body would respond to it in terms of energy levels for long runs, but also recovery, which is great. Fighting fighting inflammation, but also just fighting the fact that I'm 43 years old. Started leaning into yoga a little bit. Yoga has had this stigma attached to it for so many years, but I think more men are getting in touch with their yoga soul, or whatever you want to call it, and look at it as basically just it's stretching. It really is, and it's just keeping your body limber and just keeping your body in shape. So it's more than just planning. Obviously, planning is important because every time I want to go do a new route, then I'll obviously have to plan the route. But I know once you learn how to do these things, it's like cooking. You don't have to think about them; they just kind of come automatically. I would probably say half of my runs are routes that I've already mapped out. Obviously, the challenge, but also the excitement part is when you're traveling somewhere and you know that you have to get a run in. That's pretty awesome because that gives you a chance to come out and explore that area in a completely different way than you would if you were driving or just walking. That's when I've just a few years ago when I'm in like 5 cities within 2 weeks, then I have to explore that city a completely different way. And most of the times I'd have to do it early in the morning before the day would start. So being in Paris at 6 o'clock in the morning, running, next to the Louvre and running next to the river there, the Seine, by myself in Paris, 6 o'clock in the morning, or in London, running next to the London Eye, going up to Bin Bin, when I got the city to myself. I mean, man, that's a gift. And you have to frame it as a gift. If not, you're going to be like most people and think that just running stinks, right? That said, it's the physical embetterment, but also the mental clarity that you get from running. I've never come back from a run and felt worse than I did before I left.
I love what you're touching upon, which is the mental side of the things. And from what I'm hearing and knowing you also for a number of years, you have pretty abundant mindset, man. And I'm pretty sure that you applied some of it also to these challenges. So how did you sort of talk to yourself when I'm pretty sure you had some days that you're feeling exhausted or tired. I don't want to go out and it's raining and it's How did you go out and actually make yourself do it when you didn't feel like it?
Yeah, there's been many mornings where I didn't want to crawl out of bed. I was jet lagged or whatever. Um, I think it's that self talk that you go through. It's less about letting other people down, more about letting yourself down. I don't know how you describe it, but obviously I'm my biggest critic. That can both be good and obviously can be bad as well. Uh, and I could easily cheat. I could be lying about all of this. Maybe I haven't run 12 marathons, but for me, it's important that I document it just so that I know for myself that I did it right. So I guess it's just all about knowing yourself and knowing that if you don't do it, you're going to regret it. And you're not beholden to anyone other than yourself. I mean, even though I'm a husband or that I'm a parent, at the end of the day, there's that ego that still kind of drives a lot of our thoughts. And I guess that's just really the only answer. It's just get up and do it. Um, and it's really the good thing about running. You just got to take that first step. It doesn't require is nearly as much time and preparation. For example, I bike as well. I do road bikes. What's that called? I don't know what's that called. Cycling. It's not just normal bike. Racing bikes. Yeah. So I did a ride this weekend, and man, that probably took me 15-20 minutes just to get my bike prepped, get the wheels pumped up, get all my gear on, and then I'm out. Whereas running, I just put on my shoes and then just go, and that's it. I think that's the beauty of running, and it can be minus 10 degrees, snow, but often once you take that first step, then you're off. You don't have to worry about it.
Do you listen to podcasts or to music, or like when you run,
I
or you kind
do.
of
I
yeah?
do. Yeah, that's a whole other thing as well. So this is me time. I call it Corey time. It's a time to disconnect from everything that's been going on that day or that's just been going on in my life. So obviously there's a de-stress component there. Um, I I listen to music maybe 10% of the time, and it's not like beat music or whatever. It can be classical music, it can be Led Zeppelin, it can be whatever. Um, but 90% of the time, it's long form podcast. And I've been doing that for many, many years. So I had the privilege of producing the very first podcast back at the business school back in 2006 before smartphones. So people had no idea what podcasts were. So there, I was a little bit ahead of my time. But man, there's some amazing content right now in terms of podcasts. So I'll normally listen to long form podcasts. So if I'm out doing 2, 3, 4, 5 hour run, then I got like 2 or 3 podcasts lined up. But to me, it's my time to actually get updated on what's going on in the world. Most of them are, you got the Tim Ferriss podcast. You've got Joe Rogan. I mean, Joe Rogan's podcast, they can be 3.5 hours long, even longer if they're drinking on that podcast. Um, so it's mainly just for my way of staying updated on what's going on around the world, but also just learning new things, hearing about new people. Um, so it's almost like that time which I can multitask. I can stay healthy, continue to train, uh, and prepare for any runs that I may have coming up, or just trying to meet my goal. But also the other component of that is just training my brain at the same time. And the funny thing is I feel that I'm more receptive to these ideas. I get more excited and passionate about it because you have to think about it. You're combining this while you have the so-called runner's high. And I don't know if people have tried it, but it's freaking awesome because you're just not only you're getting all these fresh ideas, your thinking is clear. You're even maybe a little bit more critical of these things. And then once you get finished with your run, you feel great because you've just done something positive for your body, but you've kind of digested these ideas in a much more positive mindset. And I think that's important to think about.
Yeah, your body is involved. It's
Your
kind of a
body
lot more
involved, yeah.
experiential.
Well, I don't. I think you. I think a lot of your defense mechanisms are actually put put aside because you seem to just have a positive mindset when you're running, right? Um, so so there's all these things happening at the same time. I think while you're running, and it's hard to explain because obviously I can't get in people's minds when they're running. But I tell my wife, it's like, if you're going to think negatively about running, then it's going to be really hard for you to go put your shoes on and get out the door. Um, so she and I run together. And, no, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
And
you.
it's not just no, it's not just about running, man. It's about like it's such a great metaphor, running in your case for anything you do. If you think about your job is going to be terrible and everybody's going to be this and mean and that, that's probably what you're going to experience. Like it's such a great way to try to obviously there's a lot of bad things happening. The world right now is on fire, many people say, and it's very uncertain place and so on and so forth. But then again, it's about mindset. It's about what can I actually control, what is within my control, and how can I see a different perspective to whatever situation I'm faced with. And I love, this thing about the running, because you set this challenge, right? I mean, obviously you enjoy running, but not every day it's something that you're like so much looking forward to when you're tired in Toronto and you have to go out. But having this different story and belief system, which is also part of the reason I think what you're sharing about listening to those podcasts and feeding your mind with positive thoughts, with inspirational stuff, with something new, with a new perspective. And it kind of becomes like a muscle, right? Like
Yeah.
then you're more looking forward to the next time you go out and run because it was a positive experience. You get excited about it. You come back, you have this runner's high.
Yeah, and people always ask me, do you run with other people? And I know this seems maybe kind of antisocial a little bit, but most of the time I would just enjoy running by myself, to be honest with you. I run with my wife, and I run with my wife because it's an investment in our relationship. Same reason why I play tennis with my wife. It's all about, okay, great. Here's a sport that I love. I'm trying to get her to love the sport as much as I do. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but it's also because I can combine two things: my love for the sport plus quality time with my wife. I can get revenge on her because I can kick her ass in tennis because she kicks my ass in ping pong. So that helps as well. But I think it's all about, I don't think I go around and strategize about stuff, but I often try to figure out how can I kill more birds with one stone. It's like, how can I get more value out of doing the particular exercise? And I have a friend right now. I'm not going to mention his name, but I have a friend right now who I'm running with, and I mean, sure, I could go out and run 3 or 4 times the distance, but I do it right now because it's time for me to both get my physical exercise in, contribute to my weekly goals right now, but also spend quality time with that person. So, but it's I think again, like you said, it's all about your general outlook, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's also about your belief system. I've seen my belief system grow as well. It's changed over the years. Thank God. I mean, right? Our belief systems should change the older and the wiser we get. But I feel like I'm in a really good place right now.
We have a comment, actually a number of comments. I'm going to read them. Alona is joining us saying, great to hear, a shout for the yoga. And
There you
then
go.
and she says, Cory, thank you for sharing. I think she means the personal story, the journey you went through. And then we have a question coming from Anya. So she says, love it. Just get up and move. Don't overcomplicate. And then the question is, what in your opinion keeps us from starting, even when we wish we were more active? What's your take on it and advice to get over it, get out of our own way?
Great question. I'm not going to try to pronounce her name. I would butcher it. So how do you pronounce it?
It's Anya.
Anya. Okay, great. Awesome. Thanks for the question, Anya. So what, in my opinion, keeps us from starting? Keeps us from starting. I don't know. I really think it's an individual thing. I think, like most people, maybe there's this fear of failure. But I often think that once you take that first step and you realize it's not as challenging or it's not as hard as you think it is, then you start building that muscle, and then it becomes much easier. I mean, just to use an example, I think a lot of people don't go to the gym because they are afraid of looking stupid, that they don't know where to start, they don't know what to do, they don't know how to operate the machines, and there's this fear of being judged. That could be one thing. Um, that's also why I think running is easy, because you can do it by yourself. You don't even really need a pair of expensive shoes. I mean, some people are even running barefooted. Um, but it could be something. It could be something that's it's on the inside. Obviously, it could be something else. But um, I don't know.
Yeah, I I see. I mean, for me, many times I think definitely it's about this first step. Like really, like yeah, there's a lot of things that could come into the equation. It could be you're afraid of how people will judge you or some other fear, but once you do one step, it kind of you build some momentum. And usually, if you're kind of if you know you have to do something, but you don't start, but you know you're fully aligned. This is the thing I need to go for, but you're afraid of something. It's really about just jumping off. I think some people use this metaphor. I haven't jumped out of an airplane, but some people use this metaphor like when you in front of the door and you have to jump out of the airplane and you do it for the first time, especially they say your brain doesn't allow you to go because it's survival mechanism. This
Yeah.
is ingrained in you, right? uh, but then that's why they say, like, I don't know if that's true or not. Those who
Mhm.
are listening, they're this, but they say that they usually push you at 2, not at 3. They count down 1, 2, 3, but they push you at 2 because then you're not,
Issue.
you know, holding on. Yeah, like sometimes we probably just need somebody to kind of say boof, but
Well, yeah, I mean that's why personal trainers, have jobs, right? Because they're there to provide these safety guardrails and to give people the I think it's give people the confidence that they need to get started, right? But fortunately, it's like once you get over that initial hurdle, I think you realize this is not as scary as I initially thought it was. And that I think that applies to a lot of things, right? It's just giving people that little nudge that they need to get started. And it's not just about running. I think it's just about everything. It took me forever to actually start playing the guitar. And I remember growing up, I was like every kid probably thought that I was in a band, but I was not really in a band. And I always saw people who played the guitar, but I never tried myself because I always thought it was so hard. And my wife gave me a guitar for our 5th anniversary, and I started learning from scratch. And if I could, if I told my son just this the other day, I said if there was one thing I could change uh, or do differently, I would have started playing the guitar at a much younger age, because now it's like, why didn't I start earlier? It's not that difficult, right? But I had this mental barrier that it's so hard. And now with YouTube and all the tutorials and all the knowledge that we have available, there are a few things that we shouldn't have the courage to try.
so from your experience, how do we break through these limiting stories and limiting beliefs? Like what worked for you during this, you know, time to kind of to break through these stories that are holding you down?
Yeah, so there's a few things. I think there's this general, maybe it's my own fear that I'm going to be a really old man. I'm going to be on my deathbed, and I'm going to look back and I'm going to say, I wish I would have tried that, or I wish I would have had the courage to do that. I don't want to be that man. And, life is, we're not promised tomorrow, man. We're really not. And you hear all these, with all due respect, cheesy quotes: live every day like it's last. there's some truth there. There really is. I think you have to be able to take a step back sometimes and look at things from a much larger perspective. You want to live again. I feel like I'm just uttering a bunch of cliches, but you do really want to live life to its fullest, right? And to me, I guess, and again, I can only speak for myself. I guess it was that fear of not living life to its fullest was greater than fear of failure. I mean, I would rather, fall flat on my face and say, hey, at least I tried, right? Than say, I didn't even try that. And I'm learning that much later on in my life, that I probably should have done these things a lot earlier, but hey, better late than never, right? And that's something that has to click within people, because that's the thing. I mean, we can't get into other people's heads. Something has to click. It has that motivation has to come from within. I talk to my wife about that all the time. She's like, but how do I get more excited about doing this? I'm like, I can't help you. I was like, that's something you have to deal with yourself. For me, a lot of my inspiration comes from watching people who are vastly better at running than I am. I mean, I look at some of the elite runners and I'm like, okay, that's my benchmark. That's what I'm aspiring to. And it's all about what's your point of reference, what's your benchmark. I love cooking, and I can spend hours just watching, chef tips and things from Gordon Ramsay or all these other guys. I know I'll never be a professional chef, but I can try to be the best chef. I know I'll never be a professional runner, but I want to be the best runner that I can be within the limitations that I have, right?
Do you have now that you're speaking, I'm actually curious. Do you have any specific kind of a process, like to set priorities and goals? Because obviously, to do these challenges, to be a great husband, a great father, to be a great professional at the job that you do, it all requires time and energy. So do you have anything you can share with the audience, that's like a goal setting process? How do you set your priorities so you make sure that you follow through?
Yeah. So, I mean, to me, it's all about really scheduling your time really well. So I'm a bit of a slave to my calendar, to my diary. Try to block time for everything, and I really mean everything. So, a lot of us look at our work calendar, and that goes from 8 to 4, 9 to 5, where I try to kind of look at the entire day. It's not all blocked out on my calendar, but it's also it's blocked out up here. I know how I want to spend my time. Also, getting into some really healthy routines. We're creatures of habit. So if you feel as though that if you have some type of bad habit, try to find some substitute for that. Um, what else? What was the question again? What are some of the process that I go through? Yeah, I look for
Priorities
inspiration.
and goals. Yeah,
Yeah,
one of the things that you share is like your day to day, but I'm actually also curious to more like on a longer perspective. Like, how do I set priorities of what to do, what are the goals that I want to achieve, what to do, but also what not to do?
I mean, I'm not one of these people who has a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. But I'm also a person who looks beyond tomorrow as well. I think a lot of that is driven by my belief system slash value system. Um, and I think that once you have those guardrails, which are basically set up by your values and your beliefs, you kind of have I wouldn't say you could go on full autopilot, but there's when you're getting close to those, right? Um, I know where my direction is, so I know where my compass is pointing, and I know where my limitations are, and I know where I probably see myself and my family in 5 to 10 years, both from a financial situation, but also where we're going to be living in this time, and it's not all mapped out, it's not all planned out, but we're having open conversations about it. And also just think about, if you close your eyes and if you look, where do I want to be in 5 to 10 years, from a physical standpoint, from a mental standpoint, from a job standpoint, from a family standpoint. I think we can all answer that question. It may require a lot of honesty, and we may not like the answer that we get looking at where we are now. So, but you can easily do a little gap analysis. where am I now? Where do I want to be in 5 to 10 years? Just generally speaking, am I on the right path to get there? Maybe, maybe not. Okay, great. What do I need to do differently to get there? I know that sounds incredibly easy, and I'm not trying to gloss things over because it can be incredibly hard. But I think all of us can honestly look within ourselves and admit when we're doing things probably that aren't going to benefit us or put us on the right path.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's really about creating clarity, and a lot of times that clarity cannot come from the logical side of the brain. So, like you mentioned, closing your eyes and doing some visualization, maybe going and having a walk in the nature, and then coming down and kind of really being honest with yourself. Where do I want to be if I have no fear, right? If there's no limitations, obviously afterwards you also put the limitations in place. But as you know, I used to be a movie producer, video producer, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember
And
that. One of the many
when
sides of Stoyan.
you got it. But like one of the things that we do in filmmaking, and you also video producer yourself, is when you create the story, at least fiction, you don't want to put on the producer's glasses, right? You want to be creative. You want to imagine the spaceships and the dragons and all the special effects, because otherwise you might limit yourself and miss some opportunities. So you put on the screenwriter's glasses, you see the whole picture, you start dreaming, you come up with all these crazy stories and special effects. And then once you're kind of done with this, you're like, okay, let me put on the producer's glasses. Okay, I have this other priority. There's no budget. We can maybe hear the alien, but not see them on the screen. So I think some people limit themselves in the first process, and that's part of the reason they don't aim so high. I'm not saying everything is possible. We just had a conversation before, like that I interviewed David Allen last week, getting things done, and he loves to say, you can do anything, but you can't do everything.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's so good.
So the thing is, but yes, if you want to have a challenge of 52 and 52, you could do it.
Oh
You
yeah.
could do it.
But I mean, you also have to be realistic about it as well. I mean, there are a lot of people who I aspire to be like from let's just look at running. I mean, I was watching a documentary this morning about a runner named Zach Miller. The guy's a beast. I mean, he runs these races and runs them at speeds, which I mean, I'm never going to be able. Well, never. I wouldn't say never. If I wanted to do that, let's just say that was a goal. Like, say I wanted to run the UTMB, which is the Ultra Trail Mont Blanc. It's like just over 160 kilometers up through the Mont Blanc mountains. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah, I could do it, but it would require a completely different approach to things than I do right now. I would have to make major shifts in my priorities. It would cost probably a lot of my family time. But if that was a goal that I set for myself, then yeah, I mean, anything's possible. But I choose not to right now, right? Because to me, it's not important, which means it's not something I value. But yeah, never say never.
I love that, man. I love that. When you set a goal, you also have to think about what's the price you have to pay for it. Like,
Yes,
what are you willing to? Everything takes effort. And,
yeah.
and time and space and resources. So a lot of people, we've been seeing all these stories of the American billionaires, tech billionaires, and people like, I want to be a billionaire. Do you? Like, really? Do you want to take the journey of becoming a billionaire and having the responsibility that a billionaire has, like, having all the the things that you have to say no to be able to be in such a place? Like, do you really? And if you do, and some people do, go ahead.
Yeah. I think everybody sees the the gold at the end of the rainbow. They see the gains. They don't necessarily see or want to see the pains that are required to get to the gains. Pretty sure you interviewed everybody from Jeff Bezos to to Bill Gates or or anyone who's at that level, and they'll probably share a few life lessons that most people don't want to have to go through. No, but I mean we're all very different, and that's why we're not all billionaires, and we all it's all about how you want to live your life, uh, and you can live it however you really want to, right? But it's going to require tough choices, and probably choices that that well, again, yeah, they're going to be tough choices, and choices that we're probably not going to like.
And I think it's a lot more complex than probably what I'm gonna say, but it's really about trying to take control in terms of being intentional. At least it might not turn out the way you want it to be, but I kind of tend to believe it's better if I have intention where I'm going. I might still be open for the opportunities, but instead of being reactive to whatever life throws me at, like there is some balance. You can't be fully structured and rigid, and everything is by plan. But at least having an intention, what drives you, what are those priorities that you have personally. And I think now during this pandemic, a lot of people staying home. It's a great time actually to take this time to reflect on those things. What
Yeah,
really matters to me?
yeah, yeah,
What makes
very much.
me happy? Not just like what is the goal I want to achieve, the next milestone, but what really makes me happy.
Yeah, I mean the thing, and this is really teaching us all a lesson. I think to a certain extent, I know that this is a lot of people have lost their lives, and that's absolutely horrible. But if you try to find the silver lining in all this, it's kind of helped us reconnect with what's important in life. We have this conversation often in my home, where we'll be sitting at the dinner table and having conversations with our kids, and we always try to emphasize that, yeah, things may stink right now, but we are in a fortunate situation where we have each other. There are lots of people who are alone right now. We're fairly healthy. We're able to have food on the table. So it's all about a matter of perspective, right? But again, trying to have a positive mindset. I would also go just add to this that obviously, I may be the key driver in everything that I do, but it certainly wouldn't be possible without having a support network. I have a wife who buys into most of my crazy goals and is fully supportive of me, and my kids support me as well. And my wife has spent her fair amount of time with the kids while I was, maybe doing my executive education or doing these crazy runs, but also just having friends who are supportive as well. And from a career perspective, I certainly wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for people giving me these opportunities. And that's also, they say luck is about being at the right place at the right time. So it's really all about surrounding yourself with people who are going to be a positive influence on you. And I think a lot of us surround ourselves with, for lack of a better word, assholes. And life's too short to be surrounded by negativity, man. It's like you don't need that in your life. And that's a choice that we can make. I think so.
And I feel like in many ways we're sponges, right? Like you absorb the energy, the mindset. The I love the thing that you said about listening to podcasts and positive instructional material, YouTube videos from successful entrepreneurs if you're into entrepreneurship, or who are the people that I want to be like in certain areas, and how can I absorb this energy and mindsets and lessons from them. Ideally, if I can meet them virtually or in person. Now it's a little bit different and difficult to meet people in person, but there's so much material at the fingertip, man. Like you can listen to anybody, you can get lessons for anybody, you can reach out to anybody and ask them for a Zoom cup of coffee, and like this, we have all this. And I think this is also one of the reasons people get confused. There's too many choices.
Yeah, I mean, we have the paradox of choice, right? I mean, it's been proven by science that you have to give people fewer choices, or people just kind of get into like this, what do they call it, the choice paralysis, right? And I get it, and the media that we have today doesn't really make things easier, right? Most often, people just want things served to them for them instead of actually having to proactively go out and find the right things. But I think we can make choices about what types of information and we're receiving, either by the media that we're consuming or the people we're surrounding ourselves with. I mean, I even have to do detoxes sometimes, or I'll find myself, go, what do they call it, the death scrolling or whatever, where it's just negative and negative and negative, negative. Same thing with podcasts, man. If the podcast, if they get a little bit too sad for me, I have to listen to something else. But again, that's a choice that we actually, we can actively make. Nobody is forcing us to do this. Having said that, though, you obviously don't want to be too one-sided in where you're getting your information as well, because then it just becomes an echo chamber. So I also think it's really helpful and informative to hear things from different perspectives, and I get that for some of the podcasts. I'll listen to some hardcore conservatives sometimes, not because I necessarily agree with them, but because they offer a different perspective. And you can't really choose a side without really knowing what the other side is offering, right? I think that gives us perspective, and perspectives helps us live our lives in the way that that we feel is right for us.
I love that you mentioned that, man. And one topic that I also wanted to explore a little bit is I can see you probably in the office or you home right now.
I'm in our little makeshift studio here at the office. Yeah.
Yeah, you're in the studio now, but I'm curious to hear from you because you're a very positive guy. You are working a lot on yourself, like on your personal growth, on your mental state, and so on. And it's been really hard for many people, man. I'm
Hmm.
talking to a lot of people these days, doing the work that I do with coaching sessions, with workshops, and while usually we'll talk about productivity, planning, time management, a lot of those kind of more practical things. The last few months, especially, maybe because this lockdown and this whole situation has been a little bit prolonged, people just very stressed.
Hmm.
People are staying home, and we had a discussion the other day. Some people, single people staying home cannot meet other people. Some people have to deliver on deadlines and projects, and they have kids around, and they get distracted, and it's very difficult. Like, people are struggling with this kind of situation to also to kind of distinguish what is work, what is out of work. When does this work actually have to finish? Like, it's 9 in the evening and you realize you're still working, and so on. So I just wonder if you have any suggestions that maybe personal advice on what could people do to stay mentally sane, to be in a good mental state in this very uncertain times.
Yeah, so I think this is just more descriptive than it is prescriptive, because again, I think it depends on the environment and the context. And I sympathize with people who have small kids at home. My kids are a little bit older, and they're kind of they're independent when it comes to homeschooling, because they've been home for school for some months now, but they kind of do their own thing. So what I do is I schedule time, just to you have to schedule breaks, or else you end up working longer than you would if you were actually in the office. You have to schedule breaks where you can just get away from it, go do something else. We often, try, my wife and I, she's also working from home. We try to get outside, something just by getting some fresh air in your face, seeing a tree, I don't know, something, seeing a bird. That just seems to give you that mental pause that you need. Obviously, I exercise 7 days a week. Everything from doing yoga. I do a little strength training program, which doesn't require anything other than just body weight, and that seems to put me in a better place. But that's something that I do. I would recommend that for people. Also trying to schedule time, even though it has to be maybe virtually, just time with friends and family. It's not as though I do this a lot, but we'll have like a little virtual Friday bar thing where we'll connect with friends and just share share stories and updates with a glass of wine. It's not nearly as good meeting face to face. The other thing is treat yourself. Um, E-commerce will thank you. That's booming right now. Buy yourself something really nice. Fortunately, we can still buy food. Splurge on some good food. If there's a nice wine that you've been wanting, I know Heine and them from Vivino are enjoying life right now. Their business is absolutely booming because people are drinking more. Um, but yeah, I mean, times like this, you got to dig deep. You got to hang in there, and you can't be. I mean, don't hesitate to try to find the small joys in life. But when it comes to work, though, you need to probably have a little bit more proactive approach to how you schedule your day, or else you're just constantly on and off with work. So try to have some of those same boundaries that you have even when you're physically in the office, if that's possible. I mean, because I know that's one of the dangers of working remotely. I've been doing that for years when I was with Airbnb. I mean, my team was in San Francisco, so my work day didn't really start until 5 o'clock in the evening here, or the afternoon here. So it's like that can be really hard. But then you have to set boundaries. And I managed to make ends meet doing that. But you have to be clear in your communication with others. It's like, when am I on? When am I off? And that can be hard for some people, because they maybe see it as a weakness. I can't tell my boss that I'm not available. Sure you can. I mean, look, most of us aren't saving babies in our jobs. Let's be honest. I mean, maybe some who are listening here, they have critical jobs, and I don't want to sound too harsh, but at the end of the day, I mean, if you're not in a good place, you're of very little value to your organization.
Amen. Well said, man. And one thing I just add, because you touch upon so many great things, is don't be afraid to reach out. If you're in a really bad mental state, and if you're not feeling well, and if you're very stressed, call your friends, tell them, call somebody. If you're in a really bad place, there's people that can support you out there. There's professionals that can actually support you out there. And it's okay. It's not a normal situation. If you're not feeling like this, there's nothing wrong with you. You're a human being. It's okay. Just reach out.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, showing vulnerability, right? It's so funny though, Stoyan. I mean, we've never been more connected than we are now, but we've never been lonelier than we are now. That's one of the things we talked about a lot when I was with Airbnb. It was like, you have more people living in urban environments now more than ever, but we've never been more lonely. And I don't know why that is. I really don't. I wish I could crack that code, but I just wish that people would realize that vulnerability is human nature. I mean, if I listed all the things that I was really bad at, that list would be much longer than the things that I'm actually good at. But it's just being honest with yourself, and I guess having the confidence and the courage to say, yeah, I'm probably not good at that. I need help. I need help. Those 3 words, those are really hard for many people to say. Or, I don't know, right? I don't know. I need help. Please help me. I struggle with that sometimes as well. But yeah, I think that's a really good point that you bring up.
Yeah, thanks, Cory. Thanks for all this. And just to kind of finish on a positive note, what would be a kind of like your final message to people these days? Many people working from home, being locked down home, and everybody trying to kind of navigate the uncertainty of the whole environment. What would be your final message of inspiration from the one and only Cory Moore?
Oh man, I don't know. Look, so what I can tell you, and again, this is only from my world. If you're feeling down and you don't know what to do, grab some shoes, go for a run.
I love it, Cory. Thanks so much, man. Is there a place people can find you online? You said you're not so much
Yeah,
on
people.
social these days,
Yeah,
but where could
basically,
people?
the only social media which I'm really active on is LinkedIn. So just look for me there. Just search for John Cory Morris. John's my family name. I'd be happy to connect with anybody.
Amazing, man. Thank you so much for being with us today, bro, and look forward to having a run together when all this is over.
Yeah, sounds good, Stoyan. Thanks for having me.
Hey, cheers, brother. Talk to you
All
soon.
right,
Yeah.
take care, guys.